At present, scientific community has widely accepted the recent African origin of modern humans 200,000 years ago, better known as out of Africa theory. However, controversies still exist whether the early human originated in Africa or were originated at several locations including Africa. It is believed that the modern human left Africa 125,000 years ago and reached the present-day Middle East Asia, from where they dispersed into three different directions at different time scales. One lineage to the Europe, second lineage towards China, and the third lineage into South Asia, India. Nepal geographically is between Tibet, now China, and India. These neighbors represents two distinct ethnicities, the Mongols from Tibet and the Aryans from India. It is natural to think, and of course an intelligent guess would be, that Nepalese are mostly the hybrids of Mongols and Aryans. If you look at a Newari face, it is evident that there is a genetic intermixing. Some of them looks like Aryan and some of them looks like Mongolian. Several old texts, including the Swayambhu Puran, mention about how different people entered Kathmandu at different times, all later combining to be the Newars of today. Things like Lichavi or Mallas originally came from India, or Rai and Limbus being descendants of the Kirats are taken as historical facts. Newar or Newa is simply a person who historically lived inside Kathmandu Valley region. Newar never was a single racial ethnic group of people like many of Nepal's other groups like Maga, Gurung, Khas, Kirat, etc. are. Just like how all the diverse people living in present-day Nepal today is called a Nepali, likewise, all people who historically lived inside Kathmandu Valley was called as Newa or Newar. Since Kathmandu Valley, then called Nepal Mandala, had been the center of crossroads for the Indians and Tibetans Mongols, people from far and wide came to this Nepal Mandala. And Newars are the result of this melting pot of various races, ethnicities, caste of people from the south as well as the north. Newar community is one among the indigenous people of Kathmandu Valley. Newars have been living in Kathmandu Valley from the prehistoric times. The unique cultural practices, feast and festival, rituals and rites, jatra and parva created a distinct identity of the Newars. Newars are divided internally into more than 40 distinct cultural groups with different occupational categories, though they share Newari as a common language. Newars have their own unique caste hierarchy, which they claim is parallel to the Hindu caste system. In regard to the origin and history of Newars, scholars unanimously claim that they were intermixed of multiple caste and ethnic groups. If you look over 2,000 to 3,000 years of history, it is a fact that those original settlers were undoubtedly of Mongol origins. Up until the past 2,000 years, Nepal Valley was ruled by Kirats, who are believed to be the forefathers of today's Tamang, Sunwar, Rai and Limbu people. There isn't sufficient research on this, but it can be fairly assumed that even though defeated, some of these Mongols stayed back after Lichavi's conquest. Then, the new Aryan people from the south intermixed with the existing Mongols people to form the first true Newar population. Again, this was all before the caste rigidity and rules that prevented people from marrying people of other race or caste. There are subgroups within Japus, for example, who claim to be the descendants of Maispal and Gopals. There are castes like Mallakars, Mali and Tepe Benjankar, who claim to be a true descendants of those remaining Kirats. The Manandars of Kathmandu claim Greek descent, apparently from one of Alexander the Great's soldiers. But it is evident in face of all Newar caste and people that the past 3,000 plus years of Nepal's valley history has brought a good amount of intermixing and intermingling of people. People aspire to reach the Shrestha status and especially the Kshatriya status. An example of this is a caste called Saiju or Saiju, which is currently a Kshatriya status caste, but it can be assumed that wasn't so in the past. The meaning of this caste, Sai or Sai, is Bote or Tibetan, and Ju is to be. So these people were originally believed or same as Tibetans or related to Tibetans in some way, so could be Tamang or Kira. With good fortune, faith, or pure determination, they rose up the social hierarchy. Until the Malla rule, until the 18th century, Shrestha's or Shasha and Newari were seen as a Kshatriya equivalents of Newar. At least the higher Shrestha's families of today's like Malla, Hara, Roy, Pradhan, Rajbhandari, among others, claim to be the direct descendants of not only Malla but also Khas of Western Nepal, Rajput of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Karnataka, Southern India ancestry. Pradhan, Singh, Hara, Raya, Chauhan, now referred as Amatya, Raghubangshi, Rajbangshi have Rajput genealogies going back not more than 500 to 700 years. The Malla come from the Magadha area, present-day Bihar, and have connection with the caste Malla, Sen, Chon kings of which may still live there and are under present Thakuri caste. Karmacharya, tantric priests who are believed to be degraded Brahmins, many original Shrestha, not the caste but specific surname, who were warriors, along with few occupational castes like Kulu, Khargi, Kasai, Butcher families claim to have come from Karnataka and South India, along with Adi Sankaracharya in the past 800 years. Along with this newer Newar addition to the Nepal mandala, some of the older pre-1200 ruling Lichavi and Thakuri families, these ruled before Mallas, were also included the Shrestha division. Although still considered Kshatriya, these older clans were clearly seen as a lower than the newer addition of Rajput, Karnataka caste blood of newer Malla ruling class. These people are believed to be the prime progenitor of present-day people who are called Shrestha. Not all Lichavi and Thakuris were turned into Shrestha though. Most of the common folks of that time were turned into Satsudra, working as farmers and agriculture as their main occupation. They are the present-day Japus or farmers. Also, in the past 600 years, all other groups of people like Tarais, Kayastha, Thakurs, along with Jaisi Brahmins, the Joshi, were mixed into this pot of a truly mixed Shasha or Newari caste. After the unification by King Prithvinarayan Saha, the previously mentioned Kshatriya or Thakur had no option but to marry outside of their circle and marry with the rich Shrestha, Joshi, Karmacharya, and thus further mixing the pot even more. Even till today, they prefer to marry within their traditional Kshatriya caste status family, only like Malla preferring only Amatya, Pradhan, Hara or Karmacharya preferring the Guruba Karmacharyas or Joshis. So question here is, although Shrestha or Shasha caste seem to have a largely Indian descent, why do many look Mongolian? There is no doubt that there has been a huge amount of racial intermingling within Newars. Caste rigidity happened only in 1400s during Jayasthiti Malla's rule. Before that, there was no pronounced rule into marrying someone else of another race. Since Newar at that time did their primary trade with Tibetans, it is without a doubt that the rich Shasha or Newars had Tibetan concubines or gave away their daughters to rich Tibetan traders. During the Malla period, the Newars not only engaged in cross-border trades but also married with Tibetan women, get connected culturally and settle in Tibet. The Uday caste of Newars, Tuladars, Banya, Kangsakar, etc. were the Buddhist counterparts to these Shrestha's. They too were traders and merchants, and they too had Tibetan wives. But unlike the Hindu Shrestha's, where having a Tibetan wife, not just concubines but true wives, was looked down upon and discouraged, the Udays continued this practice up until the Ranas and brought back many of their half-Tibetan children to be fully incorporated in Newar society. That is the near past. However, the migration of the Newars from Nepal to Himalayan kingdom of Sikkim began after the unification of Nepal. Many Newars went exile in order to escape the torture and save their lives. King Prithvinaran Shah's ban on the construction of new houses and construction and renovation of temples, Dungedhara, Patipawa, and so on, which made the Newars unemployed. Before Prithvinaran Shah conquered the valley, there were Newars who believed in Shaivism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. After Prithvinaran Shah conquered the valley, he ordered all Christians to leave the country and kill those who do not. So, at that time, all the Newars who believe in Christianity entered India. Most of them settled in the city of Betia. The Newar Muslim, on the other hand, were very few in number, so they went and mixed with the Khas or the Hel Muslim and the Tarai Muslim. Those who acted against the rules made by the new king, Prithvinaran Shah, were assassinated. Hence, the Newars were compelled to leave the Kathmandu valley. The second argument was that King Rana Bahadur Shah exiles those Newar families who had small children from the valley to make the prince and the royal family safe from smallpox. In 1799, Rana Bahadur Shah, distraught and furious, desecrates and destroyed the temple of Harati Ma, known to Hindus as Sitalla at Swayambhu. Rana Bahadur also orders children with the disease removed outside the valley all the way across the Tamakosi in the east or the Mersyangri in the west. The legal code Muluki-In, promulgated in January 1854 AD, classified the entire Newar community, irrespective of its internal stratification, as an enslavable alcohol drinking caste. It was only in 1863 AD that majority of the Newars were upgraded to non-enslavable community after Janga Bahadur's conquest at Newar's administration of public office during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. The most drastic change came only as late as 1935 AD during Judha Samsher's reign, when amendments were made in old legal code granting Raj Upadhyayas the status of Brahmins and the Mallas and the Kshatriya Shrestha the status of pure Kshatris. The genealogy shows that the Bholache of Bhaktapur was the homeland of Rajbhandari. Later, some of the Rajbhandari moved to the east Okaldunga, the west Pokhara and Baglung. The genealogy details on the Rajbhandari of Nepal based on the early four cluster, that is Bhaktapur, Okaldunga, Pokhara and Baglung. It reveals that Thakur Narsingh Rajbhandari moved to Katunje of Okaldunga in 1868 BS, who was the real ancestor of Rajbhandari of Okaldunga, Khotang and Solukhumbu. We do not know the actual cause of migration of the Rajbhandari ancestor, but it was told that the ancestor of Rajbhandari were unable to organize bhoj or feast in the valley. The failure of organizing the feast frequently was a guilt. Social pressure and low economic condition may push the ancestor of Rajbhandari to leave the valley. The ancestors of the Shrestha were out-migrated from Bhaktapur and Patan to Bhojpur district when the Rana government, during the rule of King Girvan Yuddha Bikram Saha, opened a mint in 1814 near a copper mine and employed Newars from Patan to manufacture coins. Ancestors of some Shrestha families were migrated from Bhaktapur to Salle of Khotang district and again moved to Solukhumbu. The ancestors of Kasaju had migrated from Bamrang of Khotang district to Solukhumbu. The working class of Newar, such as barber Napit, the gardener Mali, the painter Chitrakar, the carpenter Nakarmi, Ranjitkar, Tandulkar, and the cultivating farmers, the Japus, are all of Tibetan or Mongol origin. During the reign of Mallas for 700 years, Malla appointed various people to high position in the government. Their last name was determined according to that post. For examples, the minister was called Amatya, the chief of the army was called Pradhan, the one who looked after king's treasury was called Rajbhandari, and the one who taught the king's children was called Joshi. The collective name of all these Vedic groups is called Shrestha. So, Shrestha is not a caste but was a post. In this caste, some may be Mongols, some may be Aryans, some may be tribals here, and some may have come from outside. During the reign of King Bhupatendra Malla, a number of Vaidyas came from Gujarat, India. Vaidyas went to the palace and started working as king's physician, so they were called Rajvaidya. The Vaidya who came with them, but those who did not reach the royal palace, did not become superior but merged with other castes. Upadhyaya Brahmins of various castes who came and settled in the Nepal valley 600 to 700 years ago spoke Newari. They are called Rajopadhyaya or also called Newar Brahmin. Similarly, Tirhuts like Jha, Oza, Misra caste Brahmins from Tarai also came and became Newar Brahmins by speaking Newar language. Thus, after coming to Kathmandu Valley 800 to 900 years ago and speaking the Newari language, they were called Newar. Thus, in terms of the structure of Newars, Newars are a people who have come from different places and have merged with different castes. Rajopadhyaya is considered the topmost Brahmin caste group in Hindu Newar community. The words Raj and Upadhyaya means royal and guru respectively in Sanskrit, meaning they are the royal priests. In ancient times, Rajopadhyaya were the guru and priest of the Malla kings and thus were named Rajopadhyaya. Even today, Rajopadhyaya can be seen as priest in Pasupatinath temple and Taleju temple of Kathmandu and in Changunarayan temple of Bhaktapur. Going back to the history, Rajopadhyaya are believed to have come from Nepal from Kanauj or Kanyakubja of India and settled in the mountains and Kathmandu valley of Nepal. Then the Rajopadhyaya settled in the valley, got mixed with the Newar people, learned Nepal Vasa and thus became Newar Brahmin. The Vajracharya or Vajracharya is also another caste group in which the people were masters, gurus or priests in ancient times. Thus, Vajracharya were the people who were practitioner and master of Vajrayana Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhism, Shingon and Bhutanese Newar Buddhism. Especially, Vajracharya are the priests of the Newar Vajrayana Buddhism rituals. Vajracharya are the acharyas, meaning masters or priests that perform their tantric rituals holding a Vajra or Bajra, a powerful object of Vajrayana Buddhism, and thus were called Vajracharya. Vajracharya is also assumed to be a high caste in Newar community, commonly known as Gubaju or Guruju. In the Sanskrit language, Vaidya refers to the people who were doctors or traditional physicians. In India as well, Vaidya is a term to describe a person who practiced Ayurveda and the system of medicine. This means that the Vaidyas, also known as Vaidya, were the one who were doctors by profession in ancient time. During the Malla rule, kings assigned people to take care of the wealth or bhandar of the kings and thus they were named Rajbhandari. Rajbhandaris were the traditional caretakers, treasurers of the palace and also some were involved in the military. Rajbhandaris were also involved in performing rituals as an assistant priest in various temples like Pasupatinath. Rajbhandari, believed to be the descendant of the Surya Vamsa and Agni Vamsa Rajput kings who migrated to Kathmandu Valley during Malla's rule. Rajbhandari belonged to the high caste Kshatriya Newar community. In ancient times, the people of Stapit caste groups were carpenters by profession. Stapits excel in wooden sculpture, making and carving skills to make wood look elegantly unique. Stapit major ancient settlements were in Thayamaru, Makhan, Bindyo and Lagan. The word Joshi is derived from the Sanskrit language Jyotisha, which is translated as astrologer. Going through their history, Joshi were believed to be the foreseer or fortune teller who make prediction with the planets' positions, palm reading, face reading, numerology, etc. But later in the Malla rule, the Joshis were also in high administrative and military positions like Pradhans. Joshis were also assigned as teachers for descendants and families of the Malla kings. In ancient time, Tuladars were settled in the core of Kathmandu like Asan, Botahiti, Dagu Vahal, Tyodaha, Neta, Tiagal, Kilagal, and Quatacho, etc. Tuladars were the ones to use the weighting scales in their trade and thus were called Tuladhar, which means one who possesses a weighting scale in the Sanskrit language. Tamrakar, also called Tabaha, is another caste group in the Newars community who were smiths in ancient times. Unlike Kangsakar, who were specialized as bronze workers, Tamrakars specialized in making utensils and ornaments out of gold, silver, and although their name Tamrakar literally means coppersmiths only. Kangsakar is also one of the caste groups in the Newars community who are known for working with bronze. During the Malla regime, the Pradhans were the people in the higher administrative and military positions. The word Pradhan is a Sanskrit word and is translated to major or prime. Pradhan's major settlements has been Thamel and Patan in Kathmandu and Lalitpur respectively. Later, Pradhan have also immigrated from the valley to outside the country like Sikkim, West Bengal, Assam and Bhutan. The Nepali word Sikhar means roof or topmost part of a foundation, and the people who fix the roofs are called Sikharakars. Since the traditional times, the people of this sub-community were assigned to make the roofs of the houses. They were also the ones to fix the pinnacle of the top of the temples. The main settlements area of Sikharakars were Tebahal. Baniyas are categorized as local traders and even Ayurvedic pharmacists by profession. The word Baniya is derived from Sanskrit and translates to merchant. In ancient times, Baniyas famously sold herbs and raw materials for Ayurvedic traditional medicines. The Baniyas are mostly settled in Itumbahal and Juabahal in Kathmandu. Sila means stones. Hence, the people who specialize in making art out of stone were called Silakar or stone masons. Silakars are assigned to lay the foundation stone while building a house. Silakars are the group of people who excel in making stone idols, small stupas, and engraving for stone inscription on a stone slab. Silakars' ancient settlements are behind the Mahadev temple in Makhan and Dokhada. In Sanskrit language, Chitrakar refers to a person of the Newars community who makes pictures or art. Chitrakars were named for they specialize in painting various deities, houses and temples. Sayami is a caste group in the Newars community who were named so after their occupation or professional, oil pressing. Nowadays, many Sayami use Manandar as their caste. In Sanskrit language, Byanjan refers to the food, so those people who make food adopted this caste. Byanjankar were the people who specialized in making varieties of food and these recipes during the Malla regime and thus were called Byanjankar. They are also called Teme. The ancient settlements of the Byanjankars have been inside the Kathmandu valley, especially Chasal. Newars festival and religious events are Nepal's national festival and religious events. Moni, Dasai, Swanti, Tihar, Fagu, Holi, Buddha Jayanti, Indra Jatra, Gai Jatra, Machindranath Jatra, among others. When foreigners and we alike talk about Nepal's traditional practice and religion, history, Hindu temples and Buddhist stupas, architecture, tradition, legends and beliefs, singing and dancing, music, dress, but most importantly, it's people we are talking about, Newars themselves and their culture. World-famous temples and paintings were made in Nepal in the 11th century. Of all the caste and civilization in Nepal, Newars have the most diverse variety of foods. Nepal's national dress, Daura Surwal and Sari, also comes from Newars dress that used by its courtier classes, Thapla, Surwa and Parsi. Newars are the builders of Pasupatinath, Bauddhanath and all other darvars, mat mandirs and religious shrines of Nepal. Thank you.